Hello everyone, my name is Nayan Kimure and today I'm going to be reading chapter 2 of the book called Who Was Roald written by True Kelly and illustrated by Stefan Marcheski. So let's begin. School days. When Roald was 6 years old, he started kindergarten. During his school years, he sometimes did things that put his mother to the test. He and his sister rode tricycles to school, racing down a steep hill and around a corner, so fast they were riding on only two wheels. It sounded dangerous, but at least there was little traffic in those days. After kindergarten, Roald went to the school for boys. He certainly wasn't the best student. Roald was especially bad at spelling. Even so, he liked to write. He started keeping a secret diary at home when he was 8. He kept it hidden from his 4 nosy sisters in a tin box high in a tree. Roald would sit way up on a branch and write. Roald didn't like school. What he did like was stopping by in a candy shop with his friends on the way home. The candy shop was run by a crabby old woman, Mrs. Cratchit. She dug candy out of the jars for the boys with her dirty hands. Yuck. The boys ate the candy anyway, of course, but to get back at her, they snuck a dead mouse into one of the jars. The next day, Mrs. Cratchit came to their school. She pointed out the 5 boys she suspected. Right in front of Mrs. Cratchit, the teacher took out a cane and hit each boy hard on the rear end several times. A cane would leave an ugly welt or scar. When Roald's mother heard about it, she got really mad. She wasn't mad about the boys' prank, she was mad about the caning, so mad that she sent Roald to a different school the next year. It was a boarding school for boys called St. Peter's Preparatory School. Roald was only 9 and he was terribly homesick. The head of the school was mean. The boys were caned for breaking any rules. At night, Roald slept facing towards home and quietly cried himself to sleep. He wrote to his mother every week. It became a habit until he continued until she died about 40 years later. Roald wanted to go home so badly, he faked having appendicitis. This is what his sister had died of. He was sent home, but the doctor there knew Roald was pretending. Back he went to school. At Christmas, there was a happy surprise at home. His family had a new motor car. No one knew how to drive it, but his 21-year-old half-sister bravely took the whole family out for a ride. They crashed. Roald's nose was almost knocked off and hung on only by a thread. But fortunately, the doctor was about to stitch it back on. Every summer, the Dahls went to an island called Island in Norway for vacation. In those days, it was hard to get there. The whole group, 10 altogether, had to take taxis, trains, boats, and ferries. It took 4 days. But what a beautiful place! Their mother took them on adventures to islands and fishing in a small motorboat. They called it the Hard Black Stinker. Fearless Sophie could handle the boat even in big waves. In 1927, the Dahl family moved to Bexley, near London. Their new house had a tennis court and gardens. The new neighbors did not think Mrs. Dahl was a proper parent. She let her kids run wild and use bad language. They thought she was not nearly strict enough. When Roald was 13, he left his family and his pet mice, Montague and Marmaduke, to go to another boarding school. It was called Repton School. In many ways, Repton was even worse than St. Peter's. There were more rules and more canings. Not only the teachers, but also the older boys were allowed to beat the younger boys. It was lonely and frightening for Roald. At least Roald was good at sports: hockey, soccer, cricket, squash, and swimming. It helped that he was almost 6 feet 6 inches tall. In his last year at Repton, he won the school boxing match. His teachers did not think much of him. One wrote that he did not like the way Roald so persistently wrote words, meaning the exact opposite of what he obviously intended. Clearly, his teacher never expected Roald to become a great writer. Was there anything Roald liked about Repton? Yes. It was in the town where Cadbury chocolates were made. The Cadbury Company often asked their students to rate their chocolate bars. The students took these duties very seriously. Roald always loved chocolate. There was a germ of an idea for a great book there, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. At Repton, Roald took up photography. He spent hours in the dark room and won prizes for his photos. Roald also found other ways to escape the terrors of Repton. Sometimes he took long walks. Then he bought a motorcycle and hid it in a garage a few miles from school. On Sundays, he raced about in the countryside, wearing a hat, scarf, and goggles. He was hoping to disguise himself. If he had ever been caught, he would have been kicked out of the school. By July 1933, Roald was more than ready to leave school. He had had enough. Unlike most of his classmates, though, he did not go on to college. He wanted to see the world. That's all for today. Thank you for listening.
कथा सुनाऊं